In order for me to do any justice to this story, I need to set the scene a little bit. It was the early 1900s. The world had gone through the World War I and then the Great Depression and slowly heading to World War III. Sweden's capital, Stockholm, was known to be vibrant and a busy place. People loved going out to the bars and drinks. Stockholm's historic buildings were well preserved with horse-drawn trams everywhere. A young girl named Lilly Lindström decided to move from her hometown to Stockholm with a hopeful heart and starry eyes to start a new life. Welcome to True Crime and Fiction, where I cover bone-chilling true crime and fictional stories. If you decide to subscribe, please leave a comment saying I subscribed so that I can come say hi to you. In 1932, a young woman's naked body was discovered brutally injured in her own apartment. This is the story of Lilly Lindeström, also known as the Atlas vampire case. On August 29, 1900, a girl named Lilly was born in Malmö, Sweden. She was the eldest by 4 years to her 9 other siblings. She married a merchant in her late teens, but the marriage didn't last too long. After separating, she decided to move to the big city Stockholm. Lilly moved to an apartment in a neighborhood called Atlas. She was referred to the building by her friend Emma, where Emma and her husband also lived. Lilly was known to be a lively and a beautiful girl who splurged in the things that she enjoyed. During these times, a telephone was considered a luxury that not everybody had access to. But Lilly did. She would let her friends use the telephone whenever they needed it. She also had a radio that became an entertainment source for all of her neighbors, who would often get together to enjoy the radio. Needless to say, she was helpful, friendly, and everyone loved her. Lilly was only 22 years old and the World War had just ended. Everything was going well for her. However, that didn't last too long. The Great Depression hit many countries, including Sweden. Many people lost their jobs and needed any type of work to survive. This is when Lilly is known to become a prostitute. And because of her rare access to a telephone, she became to be known as the call girl. The neighborhood where Lilly moved, Atlas, was known for its increasing petty crimes. And on the other hand, the police was also aware of her as she was caught in few petty crimes herself. Her friend Minnie Janson, a 35-year-old sex worker, lived below her apartment. One day, Lilly stopped at Minnie's apartment to ask if she had any condoms that Lilly could use. At night, Lilly came back to Minnie's apartment again in a coat covering her naked body. This was a completely regular interaction between Minnie and Lilly. However, after Minnie didn't see Lilly the next day, she was alarmed. Minnie attempted to knock on her door multiple times at several different occasions. However, all her attempts went unanswered, and Minnie contacted the police immediately. This would be the beginning of the world's oddest unsolved mysteries. On May 4th, 1932, 3 days after Lilly was last seen, the police arrived at her door. They forced themselves in as the knocks on the door went unanswered. What they saw next would shock the world. The apartment itself was tidy. However, when they entered Lilly's room, they immediately saw her body lying face down on her bed. Her clothes were neatly folded and placed on the chair. The injuries on her body were brutal. Her head was completely beaten in. She died from blunt force trauma from an object that was used to injure her head. Some sexual activity had also taken place as there was a used condom found in her anus. This is not as horrific as what was about to come. There was no blood splatters near the body, but there was little to no blood left in her body. Investigators were left confused when they saw the crime scene. It was impossible for anyone to drain the blood without any obvious marks on the body. Where did the blood go? However, there was a gravy ladle found that was covered in blood. Was it possible that someone drank the blood? To make the matters even more confusing, there was nothing found stolen in the flat or any mess. Rather, it appeared that the killer was very discreet. Soon after, the case came to be known as the Atlas vampire case. And as you may have guessed it, this is because one of the most popular theories is that a vampire killed Lilly. There was very little evidence for the police, even though the killer had left plenty of physical evidence, such as semen and saliva all over her neck and body. But this is before the days of forensic testing. Therefore, this DNA was useless for the investigators at the time. There was no struggle or abnormal noises heard by the neighbors. No one had seen the killer go in or out of the apartment, leading to no clues of the physical description of Lilly's killer. No fingerprints either. There was very little useful physical evidence that the police was working with. The only thing that police could do was interrogate Lilly's regular clients. But interrogations of 9 of her clients led nowhere. They were not incriminated due to the lack of evidence. The case still remains unsolved. There are many questions in this case that go unanswered, leaving many of us frustrated and furious. The internet did its job by speculating and creating many theories. Did a member of the authorities commit this crime and knew exactly how to cover it up? What happened to the missing blood? How could have anyone in that day and age drained all of the blood without leaving any mess in the apartment? How did they manage to leave the room in a tidy space regardless of the significant amounts of missing blood and the brutal violence? And one question that personally bothers me is, why did the killer leave a soup ladle behind? Could it be an overconfident serial killer that never got caught? But as the years go by, the likelihood of getting any answers is low. Unfortunately, justice for Lilly Lindström was never delivered. This story truly breaks my heart. It is a graphic story about abuse to a child, so please skip this one if you are sensitive to such topics. A Boy in a Box is a story of a young boy whose murder still remains unsolved. On February 25, 1957, during the cold winter of Philadelphia, a naked body of a child was found in a cardboard box wrapped in a blanket. This boy was 30 pounds and 3 foot 3 inches tall. The boy had been badly assaulted and clearly malnourished. His body had all sorts of surgical scars on his ankle, chin, and his groin area. While it was clear that the boy was abused, the body had been recently cleaned and groomed. He had been given a fresh haircut as clumps of hair were still stuck to his body. His nails and eyebrows were well trimmed. The boy was predicted to be in the age range of 4 to 6 years old, but because the body was so malnourished, investigators at the time thought he was as young as 2 years old. A college student was driving near some bushes when he saw a rabbit running. The student knew there are traps in the area and stopped to make sure the rabbit was safe. That is when he came across the cardboard box with a body in it. However, he waited for a full day before informing the police. Apparently, he was afraid of the consequences. Many people have speculated that he had something to do with the case. Otherwise, why would he wait for so long to inform the authorities? There were some clues found at the crime scene. The box had a serial number which was traced to J.C. Penney. And as it turns out, there were 12 of the same boxes that were sold to different customers. But all customers paid in cash, and therefore leaving no record to trace the possible killer. There was also a blue hat that was found about 50 feet away from the crime scene. The hat had Eagle Hat and Cab Company's logo on it. When the police discussed this with the company's owner, she remembered exactly who purchased this hat. He was a young blonde man in his 20s who got this hat custom made with a leather buckle at the back. However, again, he paid in cash and the police was unable to take this lead any further. Another dead end. The authorities distributed more than 400,000 flyers to many cities and police departments to find the identity of this child. Flyers were posted everywhere and even sent with the gas bills, but no information was received. His fingernails were also taken to many hospitals, and as it turns out, none of the hospitals had his records in their system. This could be that either one of the hospitals was never contacted or the child had a home birth. In hopes of getting new leads, his dead body was dressed up to take pictures of him sitting and lying down. The pictures were distributed to hopefully get an identification of who this boy was. However, that was also a dead end. No one came forward. The case of a boy in the box is unsolved to date, and he still remains without an identity. But this case has many theories connected to it, and I will cover 3 of them today in this video. In 1960, a psychic told an employee of the medical examiner's office that the boy had come from a local foster home. When the police went to follow up on this lead, they noticed the same blanket that was found in the cardboard box. They also noticed the same bassinet that the boy was in. The theory was that the boy was the grandson of the man who ran the foster home and died an accidental death. However, no connection was established, and therefore this lead went nowhere. Another theory came from a woman named Martha, also known as M. In February 2002, Martha came forward to the police. She stated that she had a very abusive mother who purchased a boy from his parents in 1954. They referred to him as Jonathan, and Jonathan was subjected to extreme physical and sexual abuse during those days by her mother. She stated that one day the child vomited his meal of baked beans. Because of this, the mother frantically started beating him and then later decided to give him a bath. Apparently, the boy drowned. This information matched with what only the police knew, and therefore the police followed up on this lead immediately. However, the police were unable to verify her story. It also didn't help that Martha had a history of mental illness. Therefore, her story was not taken any further. There is another theory that was developed by Frank Bender, a well-known forensic artist. His theory was that the boy in the box may have been raised as a girl. This theory was established as a result of the recent haircut and the groomed eyebrows at the time when the body was found. The fact that he had injuries in his groin area also supported this theory. It was speculated that someone may have been trying to experiment with sex change surgery, but like many other theories, this also went nowhere. In 2016, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children released facial reconstruction pictures in hopes of getting a new lead. However, again, they were unable to reach anywhere. Recently in 2021, in an interview, Head of Philly Homicide Department Captain Jason Smith said, because of DNA science, they are very close to the biggest break yet in this case. They are very close to knowing who his parents are, and then they will restart the investigation on who killed boy in the box. This child was originally buried in Potter's Field, where unidentified bodies are buried. In 1998, the body was reburied in Ivy Hill Cemetery in Cedar Brook, Philadelphia, where to this day people gather to leave flowers and stuffed animals on his headstone, a large headstone that reads, America's Unknown Child. Now, this is the end of the story too. Thank you so much for watching. If you decide to subscribe today, please leave a comment saying I subscribed. Thank you and have a wonderful day.